What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show with me, Huzaifa, and Justin, fighter, professional MMA fighter, and teammate of Francis Ngannou. So I've been dying to do this episode. I've been dying to talk to Justin. I've been listening to everything that is out there about this Francis Ngannou match. And I want to start by really kind of apologizing to this whole kind of production and this fight being put together, because now normally I buy every fight and I'm always there to watch. I'm excited. I bought the Logan Paul Dylan Dennis fight, and I really thought that this was, I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can totally blame me, but I thought that this wasn't going to be very competitive. And then I was listening to the Michael Bisping live stream, and then I heard that he knocked him down in the third round. That Francis knocked down Tyson Fury. I couldn't believe it. And we were on the text chain with me and Jesse, Justin. And then I eventually was like, I have to buy the fight. Everybody's going crazy. I bought it. I watched it. I'm not a boxing expert by any means. I tried my best to kind of score it. I know there's things like ringmanship and weird stuff in boxing that seems bizarre, but anyways, just from kind of a simple look test, doing my best, dude, I think he won. I think Francis won. I think most people think he won. And I think I saw it was Lennox Lewis or somebody else said, oh, well, in order to be the champ, you have to beat the champ, which drives me crazy. That never made any sense to me. It's not part of the rules. Like, why would you say that? Like, he won. I think he did better than Tyson Fury. And this has been like completely bananas. The sports world is exploding. So Justin, I have to turn it over to you first, because I have like a billion things on my mind. I'm like looking up at Francis in awe now. I just think it's bananas. I can't believe he pulled it off. So many people have tried. I think what's it called? Anderson Silva did actually what's it called? He beat a boxer. Fine, he did beat a boxer, but Francis Ngannou beat Tyson Fury. Okay, let me turn it over to you. What are your thoughts? Also, like, have you talked to Eric Nixick yet?
Yeah, I actually just saw Eric maybe 30 minutes ago. Yeah, he's back in the gym, man. We didn't really talk about the fight because I'm sure he was talking to some people about it. I'm sure that he's exhausted talking about it. You know, every single day he has to do these podcasts. He has people at the gym, strangers approaching him. So I didn't approach him with that. I just, kind of talked to how he was doing and stuff. Obviously, the whole team's on cloud nine, man. We're talking about the baddest man on the planet. Francis Ngannou officially is the baddest man in all combat sports right now. Yes, I'm a part of your, Jesse on Fire in your text thread. And when you said he knocked him down, immediately I jumped on the stream. I found the stream that was running the fight, and I was able to watch the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th round, man. And let me tell you, man, what an incredible game plan. Francis being an orthodox fighter, switching his stance to southpaw, throwing that straight left down the pipe. I was at a loss for words. I mean, Francis looked like a well-conditioned boxer, a well-experienced boxer in there, and that's his first boxing match. The sky's the limit for this guy. His potential is endless. His work ethic is better than anybody's. We just faced the best heavyweight boxer in the world. This guy beat Deontay Wilder, put him away. Like, it was incredible. With that being said, to the boxing world, Francis Ngannou cannot win in boxing. He can't. The sport can't afford it. Can you imagine a crossover athlete coming and beating your very, very best? That'd be like Tyson Fury coming over and beating him in MMA. It would just be terrible for the sport. It'd be terrible for boxing if Francis won. I had Francis winning. All I saw Tyson really doing is just touching him with the jab. You look at Francis's face after they did side by side. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm really disappointed in Tyson Fury. I'm a big Tyson Fury fan. I rooted for him when he fought Deontay Wilder every single time. I watched every single fight. But just to try to stay on the outside and pepper him with his jab was kind of Bush League. He needs to get in there and finish Francis. And Francis was coming after him in his face the whole time, switching his stance, left cross, hits him with that big left hook to drop him in the third. You look, and it wasn't a slip. I mean, when Tyson went down, his right hand almost got caught behind his back as he fell. Like, that's not how somebody falls when they slip. It was legit knockdown, got the round 10, but at the end of the day, it's Lennox Lewis saying, oh, he has to beat the champ. Well, he did beat the champ. He dropped him. He put him, and the champ did no damage to Francis anywhere. Again, in my opinion, he touched him with the jab. And when I say touched, I mean barely touched him with the jab throughout the fight. Boxing to me is crooked. I don't watch boxing. After I saw Manny Pacquiao lose to that Australian guy after I was striking him 3-1, that's the last boxing fight I ever watched. That besides Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, that's the last boxing match I've ever watched. Boxing's crooked. It's been crooked for years. I have no interest in losing my money watching this. But with my teammate Francis going on there and putting on a clinic like he did, I'll support him through and through.
What I'm trying to understand, and maybe you can shed some light on this. Okay, this is the part that's sort of blowing my mind. Like, how is this even possible? So let me throw out my some possible theories of how this is possible, because it seems impossible that somebody can come in. Now, granted, MMA, I've seen MMA fighters train in the gym. Like, people say, oh, maybe they can't box this and that, but you're constantly working on striking. Striking is amazing, and fine, it's a different style, but it still seems like so many people have tried. We saw Conor, we saw multiple people try and cross over. It just doesn't seem to translate. How is this possible? Was it because, like, maybe it's a confluence of reasons, but was it that Francis is just that amazing? He's just leagues above everybody else in terms of his athletic ability and mindset. Is it that because he's such a power puncher and he's got such a good chin, or was his coaching that, how is this even possible?
Honestly, I think we're not even going to talk about talent or raw talent. Let's just talk about work ethic. This guy is a workhorse. He's in the gym every single day. He's inspired. I mean, man, this guy works his ass off more than anybody. And anybody that chalks this up to raw talent doesn't know Francis Ngannou. Our lockers are right next to each other. I've had the pleasure of being next to him for the last 5 years, watching his upcome, watching how hard he trains, watching how hard he game plans, and how much Eric puts into Francis and the belief he puts into him. And that's the one thing that, Eric Nixick is an incredible coach with. He makes you a believer in yourself. If you're ever doubting yourself, Eric will turn that around really quick. And I'm sure having him there, having Mike Tyson there in the corner, working with Mike for the last however many months, man, to me, Mike at one time was the baddest man on the planet. Now taking that kind of aggression and that kind of boxing style and transitioning to Francis, it was just incredible. Not to mention Tyson Fury probably I think Tyson took him a little lightly as well. Tyson, this guy's an MMA guy. He's going to gas out. He has all that muscle to go around. Man, Tyson was gassed. The announcers were even talking about, man, Tyson looks tired going into the 7th, going into the 8th, trying to keep him off. Tyson never really pushed forward. Like when he fought Deontay Wilder, he was putting Deontay into the ropes. He was putting him into the corner. He was sagging on him, trying to gas him out. I thought that was going to be his game plan, but I think the power of Francis just kept him away, kept him at bay, and that's kind of why he never really landed any big shots. He just kind of peppered him with the jab. Again, I'm big on damage. I'm big on effort, and Tyson's effort was lackluster to me. His damage was minimal, and he got dropped in the 3rd round. Francis Ngannou is the baddest man on the planet. Between his work ethic, between Eric Nixick instilling his mindset, and between Mike Tyson there, working his technique. I mean that's just a recipe for success.
And I mean, look, I have to believe that part of the reason Tyson looks so exhausted is because of Francis, because I think Francis was confusing him. I think he was thrown off. Francis was extremely composed. I think that Tyson expected something different. And Tyson said, I take him at his word. He said he did a 12-week camp. He was prepared. He was in shape. So, I think I heard one of the gentlemen from BT Sports and Mike Bisping today talk about the fact that, hey, this wasn't the right good Tyson or something like that. But I don't know. I take him at his word for it. I think he did the preparation. I think it was because Francis threw him off. I think there was an element perhaps as well that benefited Francis, is that there wasn't tape on him. So I think he did surprise him. I think he was confused. I think he probably also gassed because he took a hard shot did you look at the replay when he got clocked? It was a hard shot right up here. So you tell me, as a fighter, if you take a shot like that, you're knocked down, probably dazed. What does that do what does that do to the cardio?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, taking shot. I mean, there are times where I'm not even throwing any punches, but I'm just getting pattered with the jab, pitter patter with the jab cross, and it is exhausting. Exactly. You get hit in your equilibrium, man. You get hit right in that temple. That wobbles you, man. It puts you on Queer Street for a hot second, and I'm sure that's what happened. He goes down. He has to regain his wits, and then he has to survive, and I really wish, if there wasn't that 10 count in boxing, that's where Francis jumps on and finishes.
I thought about that.
Kills kills Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
You know, I think later on in the round, or in the 8th, 9th, and 10th, you know, the rounds were close. I really would have liked to see Francis really go out and try to go out on his shield, you know, and really take the fight to him. I thought the 9th and the 10th round were a little lackluster, a little too close for my liking. But at the end of the day, I'm not in there. And I've never went 10 rounds, so I can't tell you how Francis felt. But as an overall performance, I give him a 9.5 out of 10, man. And the only reason I say not out of 10 is because he'd never boxed before, and the inexperience. He had a little bit of an experience to Tyson. But again, man, Tyson didn't do anything. He just kind of peppered him with that jab. Again, very lackluster, no bruising on his face after 10 rounds. I mean, you have 30 minutes to put some bruises on your opponent's face, and the world's best boxer, the #1 ranked boxer in the world, couldn't do that to an MMA fighter. I mean, that kind of says something in itself.
Yeah, and you know, I want to make something clear too, and I think we talked about this a little bit as well. You know, we say, "Oh, now Francis is the baddest man on the planet." Let's be clear: Tyson is not in the conversation for the baddest man on the planet. Francis already was the baddest man on the planet, but this makes him the potentially one of the greatest combat sport, maybe the greatest combat sports athlete of all time, right? And I don't see you can't give that title to a boxer. Obviously, you put him in a cage or in a street fight, whatever you want to, whatever it may be. It's annihilation. 100 out of 100 times Francis would defeat Tyson, and I know you agree with me on that front. But yeah, it's just mind-boggling. And then now look at the possibilities for him here. Now here's the thing. I want to talk to you about this. You're not a boxing fan. I'm not a boxing fan. I only bought that fight because of Francis. I don't care about anybody on the undercard. I bought the Dylan Dennis fight because I was so intrigued by the buildup, but I don't really care. Okay, I want to see true mixed martial arts. I love training Muay Thai. I think it's amazing. It's a true competition of who can beat who, right? But everybody's now saying they want to see Francis box again. Francis said in the MMA Hour yesterday that he is going to continue to do a mix. He wants to do MMA, boxing, go back and forth. And I think that's super cool. And I want him to do him. But I got, you know, me personally, as a massive MMA fan, I want to see Francis in MMA. I mean, do you have thoughts on this, or are you kind of like, hey, I just want Francis to do what makes him happy?
You know, I just want Francis to do what makes him happy, but he's definitely going to go back to MMA. I mean, he's in the PFL. He's signed with the PFL. Ray Sefo, the president of the PFL, trains and coaches at Xtreme Couture. Again, somebody I see on the daily. I don't think this is the end of Francis for MMA. He's going to go. I know there's a clause in his PFL contract, like any opponent Francis fights gets $500,000 or something ridiculous.
$1 million. I think it's $1 million or $2 million. Yeah.
Ridiculous amount of money. So I think there's too much money involved for Francis to leave MMA. With that being said, on the other side of that, I really, really would like to see two heavyweight power punchers go at it. Tyson Fury's not a power puncher, but I know a guy that is. Deontay Wilder.
Yeah.
Deontay Wilder and Tyson and Francis Ngannou, and then have them fight, and then the winner gets a shot at Tyson Fury for, you know, some ridiculous amount of money. I mean, that will draw me back to boxing as a non-boxing fan. Again, I think there's too many crooked boxing judges, and I'll even call one out. Adelaide Byrd, I think she's trash. I think she's a trash MMA judge. I think she's a trash boxing judge. There's too many crooked judges like her in the sport for me to ever become a fan of. But I am a fan of Francis Ngannou, and I'd love to see him go and fight another power puncher like Deontay Wilder, and then get another shot at Tyson Fury, and then go to the PFL, win the PFL tournament. And again, the baddest man in the planet isn't the baddest boxer. Just like you said, the baddest man on the planet is he can beat anybody's ass in a street fight, and then he can transition over to a sport that he's never done before, compete with the #1 fighter in the whole world.
Exactly. 100% agree. Okay. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if you've heard this. Maybe you have. If you haven't, this is going to blow your mind. So people are talking about Deontay Wilder. Actually, I just heard Anthony Smith on the Michael Bisping podcast saying that all three of them, even the other, I'm blanking on the guy's name from BT Sports, the guy with the shaved head. Love him, by the way. Great. But I'm just forgetting his name. But all three of them, I think, if I remember correctly, agreed that in a boxing match, Francis would beat Deontay Wilder. But here's the crazy part. Did you hear that Deontay Wilder has been training MMA for 7 months and is open to an MMA fight?
I mean, he's a super athlete. He's a super power puncher, man. You take those boxing gloves off and you put MMA gloves on. This guy's competitive. I mean, like I said, he's a super athlete. There's only been one high-level boxer to transition over to MMA, and that's James Toney, and he was tapped out in 1 minute by the one, the only Randy Couture, my boss and my friend Randy Couture. So for Deontay Wilder to have those kind of cojones to come over into the world's most dangerous sport, coming from a straight boxing background, I don't think 7 months is enough time to work your wrestling and grappling. I think for him to be competitive against somebody like Francis, he's going to need a lot more time. But with that being said, with the MMA gloves on, it only takes one punch. And when you're knocking guys out, putting guys to sleep, killing people in the ring with boxing gloves on, I just can't imagine what he would do with MMA gloves on. With that being said, the less padding, his bones will break a lot easier. He hits somebody in the top of the head, his bones are going to break a lot easier than they would with boxing gloves too. So, is he going to be able to throw that 100% power? Again, if Francis covers up like this and he hits him in the top of the head, I mean, that hand's done for the fight. So, I mean, it's very intriguing. It's very interesting. Man, there's nothing I respect more than crossover athletes, man. I would love to cross over to boxing and take on some of these guys, for a good payday, because boxing is just so one-dimensional. I mean, these guys are great athletes. They have great footwork. They have great hands. They're fast. They're in shape. But at the end of the day, it's not a fight. It's just a boxing match.
And here's the thing, that regardless of what would go down, right? Would Francis probably beat Deontay Wilder, like 99% or whatever it'd be in MMA? Yeah, I think he would. But like, I would 100% want to see it, because finally, you said James Toney, how long ago? Finally, a boxer is willing to come over. So I would have just so much respect for Deontay Wilder. It'd be absolutely amazing, and I would absolutely love to watch that. Even if Francis is going to dominate, and I'd love to see Francis get that win, I think it'd be a massive payday. So yeah, I would be so game for that. I hope Deontay Wilder is open to that. Maybe you're right, 7 months, or maybe even if it took another 6 months to train wrestling and grappling, he's going to be at a disadvantage. But massive props. Finally, somebody's coming over. So I'd love to see that. Okay. But I want to throw something out there. Nobody's talked about, probably because it's impossible. Fine. If it's impossible, whatever. But let me throw this out. At this point, and by the way, I know Dana White and Francis have a beef, but Dana White is not the UFC, right? The UFC is so big. There's so many executives there. It's now part of Endeavor. There's stockholders, shareholders. I'm invested in Endeavor Group as well, where there's lots of people invested. It's not just Dana White. What do you think about this? If it were possible, I have what I want to see the most out of anything in the world as an MMA fan is I want to see now Francis Ngannou fight John Jones. There's nothing else that's more interesting to me. And I assume nobody's even mentioned it or talked about it, because probably people think it's impossible. But what if somehow the UFC, again, like, probably they wouldn't do this, but what if they would be open to the idea of just sucking it up, being like, Francis Ngannou is the biggest name in combat sports, period, right now, right? You agree? There's nobody bigger. And what if they did a co-promotion, or somehow was able to get him out of his contract and bring him back to the UFC, something like that, offer him 20 million, 30 million for a super fight against John Jones? Imagine. Greatest fight of all time. Price sell over 2 million pay-per-views, easy. Maybe even 3. Who knows? First of all, do you think this would ever be in the realm of possibility? And secondly, like, do you agree with me that this would be amazing?
I agree with you 100%. I think it would be incredible. With that being said, I really would love to say there's a small chance, man, but I think Dana White's ego when it comes to Francis Ngannou is so strong. He made it. Look what he did. He cut him just because he wouldn't agree with him. He's like, all right, no problem. You don't want to take, my terms, you're done. Which he's kind of, slinging his dick around, showing like, hey, I'm the fucking man. Well, now he just lost the biggest draw. Right now, I think that fight gets more recognition than Conor McGregor versus anybody right now.
100%.
We're talking about a winning fighter. Conor McGregor hasn't won a fight in about 25 years and might never, ever win a fight again. And I know everyone's still going to tune in because it's Conor McGregor. And the talk is great to watch and the hype, but we're talking about a world champion that just arguably won a split decision in boxing against the number one boxer. I mean, he's the huge draw. I would love to see if the UFC come and do a one fight deal. Like,
yes,
hey,
that's what I'm saying.
baddest guys in the world. I wish Dana White would suck it up, and maybe he might. I just don't think he's going to. I think his ego's a little too big. I think, he's made his decision. He's going to stand by it, unfortunately. I can't guy that he's going to think like, oh shit, he's going to change his mind now. I would love for him to. I hope he does. I just don't see it happening though.
Or buy him. Okay, here's the other issue, right? If he fights, let's say they do a co-promotion, he fights John Jones and he wins. That would probably be disastrous for the UFC brand. You beat the UFC champion and you're part of the PFL. But what if there's some way they could buy him out of his PFL contract? I know that'd probably be a lot of money, but a fight like this right now, where Francis arguably is, even at this time today, okay, I don't know for sure, but at this exact moment, Francis Ngannou is maybe, would you agree with me, maybe bigger than Conor even, right at this current moment?
Oh, at this moment, absolutely. Yeah.
At this moment.
In France, I don't think so, but I think at this very moment, absolutely.
At this very moment, if you could somehow buy him out of this contract, put on the biggest fight the world has ever seen, and it would be probably John Jones' retirement fight. I mean, imagine, I want to see the Steve fight so badly, but imagine you put it on, you pull it off, and it does 2.5, maybe 3 million pay-per-view buys. I think that's in the realm of possibility. And take the sport to the next level with the UFC at the helm. Imagine. Now, would PFL ever do that? I don't know. They too have a vested interest. I know they're making a play to be the biggest, baddest organization. So I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts. But God, we could dream, and it would be. Yeah.
There's a piece to this, Jose, and this is something that you need to mention. This is another reason why I don't think the UFC is going to do it. It's a lose-lose right now. The PFL is coming up with all this money, and they want to be bigger than the UFC. When I talked to Ray Sefo, he talked about Redbox or Netflix to Redbox, Netflix to Blockbuster. Originally Netflix tried to they were trying to sell to Blockbuster to work together. Blockbuster said absolutely not. Netflix will never come through. I see the PFL as Netflix. I see the UFC as Blockbuster right now. Now, if PFL takes their champion, the world champion, Francis Ngannou, former UFC world champion, PFL champion, coming in, and he beats the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC, guess what? PFL stock just shot through the roof and the UFC drops. All right. Yeah. If John Jones beats Francis and by split decision, again, PFL just shoots up there, and now they're competing companies now. Instead of right now, the UFC is here, the PFL is here. Something like that will make a huge swing. And I don't think although it's a huge moneymaker, the UFC is a $1 billion organization. Are they going to take that risk of losing their best #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the history of the sport to Francis Ngannou when he's working for another organization? I don't see very much upside for the UFC, especially because John Jones is supposed to win. If somehow he loses, the UFC is going to lose a lot of credibility. A lot of people are going to start watching the PFL over the UFC because the PFL is they're going to think they have better fighters, which in a lot of cases they do. A lot of these UFC guys are transferring to the PFL because of the pay, because of sponsorship. I mean, the PFL is getting so much momentum right now. Francis Ngannou beats John Jones. The UFC loses so much money, so much credibility, and so many fans are going to start watching the PFL as well. Maybe nobody's ever going to shut out the UFC, but they're going to start watching the PFL. And maybe if Francis is on a PFL card and you have, Joe Schmo on a fight night, the PFL is going to get more views than that fight night card.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts.
It's just such a to me, okay, it feels like almost a tragedy that the Ngannou John Jones fight is not going to happen. So that's why I want to throw it out there, because it's like that it would be so much fun. I'd be so excited, but maybe you're right, and maybe it's kind of sad. It'd be the coolest fight of all time, in my opinion.
Here's another thought for you. John Jones is talking about retiring after his next fight.
Yeah,
right. Well, I know for a fact that the PFL is coming into a shit ton of money. John Jones retires. Hey, John, million to come to the PFL for one fight.
Yeah, but like I imagine the UFC has contractually like locked him in some, right? Because don't they sign you to multiple fight deals, and like even though he's going to retire, but he'll technically still have multiple deals in this. I imagine they prepared for that. I could be wrong, but like,
well, we're and again, it's probably unlikely. But what if? I mean,
it's so sick, but then
on his contract, and he wants his retirement fight. He takes a year or two off and comes back for $25 million. I mean, come on.
I would love to see it. There's so many interesting things. And look, I want to put this out there too. I'm a massive fan of the UFC organization, and I don't want to see them. I know you're friends with Ray Sefo, and you want to see PFL, and like probably all of them. You've been in the UFC. You probably love both organizations, but I do want to see UFC, the UFC continue to succeed, because I think it's just such a fantastically well-run organization and production and whatnot. So me as a longtime UFC fan, I'd love to see it happen there. But whatever, if it happens, period. Oh my God, and I want to see MMA take over the sports world as the #1 sport in the world, because I think it is the best in the world. So that's my 2 cents.
You lose me here? I don't see
I see you. I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you for a bit, but I can hear you.
Called me and interrupted the stream.
Oh, it's all good. But this is perfect timing. My dog trainer just got here. So I know we have to do a short one, but I just had to talk about this because I'm like exploding with ideas and the possibility of the future. You can go ahead and open the door, Louisa. So I just wanted to talk to you about it. We're going to do another show this Friday, and we can talk more about this, and we can talk more about the next upcoming UFC event, which we're super excited about. But Justin, anyways, thank you so much for giving your thoughts. So cool to hear from one of Francis Ngannou's teammates. And by the way, I see guys are just logging on now. Hopefully you can rewind. I think we had a really interesting discussion, some discussions that nobody else is talking about, maybe because it's impossible. But I think it's good food for thought. So thank you guys so much for joining. We appreciate it. Justin, thank you. And we'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.
See you guys.
Okay, hold on. I'm just editing.